Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Designer versus AI, where I take an AI brief and logo and try and redesign it into something better. Now, the reason why I'm in my gym kit right now and the lighting is not perfect is because I actually recorded this video earlier, but technology sometimes lets you down. So it actually didn't upload all my video recorders and I had to start completely from scratch. So just bear with me for this one, and then the next one I'll probably do it live. Not live, but you'll be able to see the process more. So the premise of this is that I've gone to ChatGPT and told it to write me a brief for an imaginary brand. And this brand is in the tech space or innovation space. And on top of that, I've also told it to design the logo for this imaginary brand so that I can redesign it and approach it from my perspective, and we can compare the two and see which one works better. I might be setting myself up for criticism with this, but look, whether you like it or not, I want to know in the comments. And just be nice, though. Be nice. Be truthful, but don't be mean. All right, cool. So I'm just going to present what the brief is first, and then we're going to go through the logo design. So this business name is Neura, and Neura is a direct-to-consumer wellness tech company that creates wearable devices designed to help users improve their sleep. Now you can see this thing that is giving us a business description, which is really, really cool. Now, the core target audience is urban professionals aged 28 to 45, enthusiasts and biohackers, mental health conscious consumers, early adopters of lifestyle technology. Now, there's something called associated nouns, which I like to use, which gives you an image of the things that come to mind when you're thinking of a brand. So this one is calm, pulse, rhythm, balance, frequency, signal, mind, and then associated adjectives to describe the brand, which is adaptive, minimal, intelligence, tranquil, sleek, grounded, and precise. So when you're designing a logo, these are the sort of things that you can use to tell a better story. Now we've got the core values over here, which are holistic well-being, design-driven innovation, empowerment, science-backed, and sustainability. And the sun is looking real good on my face right now. The vision statement is to become the world's most trusted wellness tech brand by making emotional and physical balance as measurable and manageable as fitness. Now, we can see here, this is the logo that ChatGPT came up with. It's not the most terrible logo I've ever seen, honestly. Like ChatGPT will give you like a basic logo that's not terrible, but it won't necessarily solve your business problems. And that's what makes the difference between a human brand designer and a robot. For now, it might get to the point that it can actually get deeper, but this is like the surface level kind of stuff. You would expect like a beginner graphic designer or logo designer to use this kind of imagery for this kind of business, the kind of like the brain waves kind of thing, because it's about biohacking and all that kind of stuff. It's not terrible. It's not bad design actually, but the problem with this is that it's not very unique. And that was my problem, and that's the problem I was trying to solve. So I'm going to take you through my process as to how I came up with my design, and then we can compare the two. So let's go over to my inspirations. I took the certain imagery and thought about the ripples, again, the brain waves. Again, you gotta have the brain waves, but don't go too obvious, right? But there was the idea of rhythm and the idea of rhythm and repetition. There's also the idea of balance being the main theme in this business, in this brand. And what represents balance? What images represent balance? You've got the pebbles, you've got the symbolism, like the yin yangs and all that kind of stuff. You've got the two fish over here, which is obviously a Japanese thing. And you've got the skills. So this is some things that can tell a story, right? And this is something I did very quickly. This isn't something I spent like days on. I was thinking about it for a while, but like in the design process, I did it in like an hour, just as a quick example in this task. Now, what I really wanted to do is to take a look at the ripple effect and the yin yang effect. And I started doing some ideas here saying, okay, how can I show the kind of brainwaves without being so obvious that it's brainwaves, but also show that it's ripples? So I went a bit literal here, tried to do a little bit of a yin yang thing over here, but it didn't really work, to be honest. I didn't like it, but that's part of the process. You create things that you don't necessarily like, but it's part of the process. You eliminate what you don't like and keep what you do. So I kept on going and kept on going. I tried to make a yin yang thing. It didn't work. I was so over it. I was like, this is clearly not working. And part of the design process is like kind of like hating yourself. I ain't gonna lie. I go through a lot of times where I'm just like, I hate myself. I'm the crappy designer. What am I doing with my life? But you keep trying different things, no matter how crappy they are. And then you just keep going. And I'm like, okay, let's try a font. So this font is called Fig Tree. And I was like, quite like this font. Let's see what it'll look like with just the font, different weights, and all that kind of stuff. And you can see the deep work that's going into this kind of thing, right? Meanwhile, an AI logo will most likely just grab things from the database in order to make something. So it's not really original. It's not completely bespoke. It's actually grabbing things. It's just like me going onto Pinterest and making something that looks like something from Pinterest. It's not what you really, really want, because you want your branding and your logo to reflect your story, and your story is very unique. So your logo needs to represent the uniqueness of your story. Your logo needs to represent that uniqueness. So I go on and I'm like, okay, I like the font. It's quite modern, it's quite techy, but I was like, okay, can I do the kind of repetition kind of thing with the font? And it wasn't really working. I tried different things, still wasn't really working for me. And then I remembered, what other shapes symbolize balance? And I thought a triangle. So, and it's all about the mind, the body, and the environment. I wanted to symbolize that in the logo. So I started playing around with this thing where it has the triangle in the center, but it's creating this ripple effect of imperfect kind of circles, but it's still balanced. But I wanted it to also represent pebbles in the brainstorming I did. So you've got the balance, you've got the pebbles, you've got the repetition, you've got the rhythm. Like, I'm talking about this thing as if it's like a work of art, but that's the process. That's the process I went into to create this thing. And then I came up with this kind of thing, and I was like, oh, I like where this is going. It's more balanced, it's modern. For something that's done really quickly, I'm like, okay, well, this isn't too bad. And I quite like it. And then here we are. And then finally, this brings me down to the final version of the logo, which is here. Now we have this rebrand of Neura, the sleep tech company. The logo is abstract. And from that logo, you can have patterns. You can have the kind of brainwave patterns where it's like a ripple effect. As you can see here, it's very subtle, but it works. Then you've got the mock-ups here on the bottom row. You've got it on the headband, which is the hero product of this imaginary company. And then you can see it like, you can imagine this on an advert. You see what I mean? So let's compare the two. Let's do a quick side-by-side comparing the two. Here we have the original on the left, and then you have my version on the right. Now, I've obviously expanded it into different colors and created a whole suite from it of different versions. You have the horizontal, the vertical, the icon, and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the first one, I didn't tell it to create any, to be fair, I didn't tell it to create multiple versions of the same logo. However, you can see that even though I've gone kind of abstract, you can still get the feeling of repetition and rhythm and balance from this. And that is the story that I was trying to tell with this. But what do you guys think? Do you feel like I did a good job comparing the two? And it was fun. It was a fun activity to do. I'm going to do a lot more of these things if the technology behaves itself. I hope to God that this doesn't get deleted, because the software I'm using was being problematic today. But I hope to God that it works. Other than that, I hope you liked it. I hope you liked the process of AI versus designer. Next time, I will show the actual process so that you can see me thinking while I'm designing. But for the most part, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.